McGillicuddy and Murder's Pawn Shop, Season 4, Episode 12. All the mice are dead. October 20th, 1921. Continued. It seems inadequate to say that I was in despair. This was more than despair. Deeper. And also more complex. I hadn't felt this desolate since I'd lost my parents. And at the same time, I couldn't despair fully. Not yet. It wasn't over. Ariana still hadn't won. Most of us were still ourselves, still whole. We still belonged to the pawn shop. I had to get up and do something. I had to find a way to check on everyone. I got up, and my only course of action seemed obvious. I had to get my blood back from Raster. I had to. Only then could I make it to the haunted house to see who of our number was left. I didn't have any way of tracing Raster, so I did the only thing I could. I went back to the Goresby Hotel, and I pounded on the crabby old woman's door. Keep in mind that it was 2 o'clock in the morning, so she was probably about to murder me. I didn't care. She had thrown a broken glass jar at me once, and so this time I was ready. "What is it?" she shrieked. I pounded on the door again, then yelled, "I've got to know where Raster went, the man who used to live across the hall. I've got to know right now." A light turned on. I saw it flicker to life under the door. I heard her wheeze and curse and shuffle to the door. She cracked the door open. "You," she spat. "I am not a charity worker, I am a wicked gangster," I said, "and you're going to listen to me. Where did Raster go? Did he say anything to you? When he moved? Where did he go?" "You're a gangster, are you?" The old woman looked at me with new admiration. Well, let me tell you everything I know. He cleaned up, quick, one day, and said he was going to live by the docks. That's all I know. He said he needed fresh air, and I told him he was an idiot." "Thanks very much," I said. "Always happy to help a gangster," the old woman said with an admiring smile, and shut her door. I teleported straight to the docks. Was Raster watching my progress? Did he know I was getting close? The docks, despite their odd smell, had a distinct advantage. Not too many people lived here. It was mainly businesses and shipping warehouses. So, of course, being in the middle of the night, very few lights were lit. I spotted one about 50 yards ahead, and I teleported to it. It was the second floor of a warehouse. I peeped inside, got a good look, and teleported inside. But the light was only an electric light bulb someone had left on. I went back out to the docks and spent another 10 minutes looking. Finally, I spied a funny thing. A basement window, with light shining out. But the window had been covered in a black cloth. Now only a sliver of light escaped. Getting inside was as simple as getting on my knees and peeping into the room beyond. Honestly, why do magic unusuals not burgle everything? I teleported into the grubby basement. There was a boiler room that someone had turned into a living quarters. And by someone, I mean Raster, because he was sitting right there. "How did you get in here?" he gasped. "By looking," I said. "But," he spluttered, "you're meant to be at Dawson's pub right now. You were there last." Raster gestured helplessly at a funny contraption on the table in front of him. It looked like a telegraph machine, but one with a needle. The needle wrote in slow, slow cursive, one location at a time. I glanced over his shoulder at his list. He only had 6 locations written down so far. I burst out laughing. "Oh my God!" I cried. "What is so funny?" Raster sneered. "I have been to about 100 locations since then," I said. "It is going to take you weeks to catch up to my current progress." "It's been going slower than usual," Raster said. "It was quick at first. Renfield found the 2 of you right away." He glared at me, as if I owed it to him to be easier to find. Have you been teleporting like a fiend? No wonder the poor machine is miserable. It's about to be more miserable, I said. I saw the vial of my blood sitting at the top of the telegraph machine, neatly tucked into a little crow's nest of sorts. I knew it was my blood. I had a gut sense, and also Raster was tracking my blood. I snatched the vial and teleported, while Raster yelped with dismay. Then I thought of something else, and I teleported back. Raster was moaning and cursing. When I reappeared, he shrieked. You can't just barge in here and steal things, Raster yelled. I wasn't ready. I didn't even have my gun. Is this all of my blood? I said. I held up the vial. What? He said. Is this all of it? For now, Raster snarled. Hold still while I get some more. He grabbed a knife. That was enough for me. I teleported, confident now that I had all my blood back from him. After all, if he'd had a second vial, he wouldn't have been so distressed. I teleported thrice more, just to cast off any skull spells. But Raster couldn't track me anymore. Oh, I felt as light as air. I needed to get back to the haunted house. Now. I would have just drawn a symbol right then and there, but I was running out of magic jelly. I didn't like to think of what would happen when I did run out. I needed the stuff. It didn't grow on trees, and I needed to preserve it. Once I had assumed that I would be able to pop back and forth to Mara just by using my eye as a murder object. When my eye had disappeared, I had lost my chance to find her again. There was also no sign of her in 1921, like she had just vanished from history. I had to assume that this was the last of my magic jelly. Once I used this up, there was no hopping from time to time with ease anymore. I would be back to the complexity and limitations of murder objects. So naturally, my best course of action was to teleport back to the ruined castle. This time I was sure Noble or Renfield would be there with the gun. Yet when I arrived, still no one. What was Noble thinking? Why weren't they here? I used the eye to head straight back to the haunted house. And to my dismay, when I arrived, it was still completely empty. All the lights should have been lit. There should have been a chatter of voices, a hubbub of hysteria, someone going around in a frenzy, offering everyone biscuits. It was so silent. Hello? I shouted. Isn't anyone back yet? It wasn't possible, was it? Not so quickly. Noble and Ariana couldn't have teamed up that fast. Then again, maybe they had. Maybe the night enthusiasts had shown up here already with their guns and started shooting. Maybe our magic unusuals were now scattered all over the world, hiding in this timeline, lost and unable to come back. I charged up the staircase. I wanted to be optimistic. Maybe they just weren't back yet. Maybe they were hiding in 1921 or had split up after seeing my notes. I had no reason to believe that the worst had happened. We were scattered, but we were going to be all right. On my way up the stairs, I ran into another ghost. Because of course I did. It scared me to death, of course, but my nerves were already so shot. It was just one more thing. I threw my hand up over my heart and then growled at the ghost. Maud, the ghost said. I shuddered. I never liked talking to the ghosts in this house, but this one was different somehow. It was hard to gender any of the ghosts, but this one was smaller and had long, dripping hair. The face was puffed, and the skin seemed to be melting on one side. As always, the ghost glowed turquoise. This one floated on its side, near the ground, like it was struggling to stand up, but lacked the strength. What is it? I said. I normally felt like I didn't have time for these ghosts, but now it seemed prophetic that the only person I met in this house was one of them. I needed to take time to talk to this one. Maybe this ghost had seen what had happened. I knelt down, squatting until our eyes were level. Where is everyone? I asked the ghost. Do you know? Everyone is dead, the ghost said. Everyone is dead, like me. I took this for a bit of ghost melodrama. What do you mean everyone is dead? I said. The blood is on your hands, the ghost said. Magic, unusual, blood. I shuddered again. The ghost knew about the blood from the wooden sign, the blood that had gotten all over my hands. Noble and I had been discussing it, right before he'd been shot, and I hadn't thought about it since. Do you mean that this is all my fault? I said. Do you mean that I'm going to murder people? What are you talking about? The ghost seemed strangely familiar, in a way that made me uneasy. Their face. Of course they were dead, decaying, spectral, but something was familiar. You are the only one who can set things right, the ghost said. Listen to me, I said. You watch the house. I need you to tell me what happened. Who came here? Have the magic unusuals come back yet? Have any night enthusiasts arrived? Find the bodies, Melinda, Maudie, Merkel. I was so frustrated I was going to scream. Well, and I was also going to scream because I was terrified. It was still a ghost. Don't forget us. The house is empty now. We see that. The house is empty now. But you must not forget us, Melinda, Maudie, Merkel. You are our last hope, and we are yours. We waited 5 years for you to arrive. We have waited 5 years in this house for you to arrive. Do not forget us. Do not leave us here, or you can never hope to save your soul. Where are the others? I said. Tell me what happened to the others. I pleaded with the ghost. With that, the ghost raised its pale, glowing finger and pointed. I turned and looked, and behind me, in the dark hallway, stood Mr. McGillicuddy. I whirled back on the ghost, but the ghost was fading. Soon, it would be just Mr. McGillicuddy and I alone in the dark house. And then it was. Mr. McGillicuddy was dressed in a nightshirt, and his white beard made him look like the ghost of Father Time. Mr. McGillicuddy, I said. I rushed up to him and took his hand. I was so sure he was a spectre. He was real, though. Warm. Human. It was really him. Something in his eyes had looked dead, though. Vacant. It haunted me. Mr. McGillicuddy, you're awake. We were worried that you would never wake up again. I didn't wake up, Maud, Mr. McGillicuddy said. He shook his head sadly. So he could speak. For a moment I'd been afraid that this wasn't Mr. McGillicuddy, that it was one of those strange cadavers, like the one that I had seen of Wrath and the one that I had seen of Don Mamungus. But it wasn't a cadaver, because those never spoke. This was the owner and proprietor of McGillicuddy and Murder's pawn shop. The man I was before will never wake up again. I let go of his hand. The hallway seemed to whisper more now, like something was coming out of the darkness towards me. Mr. McGillicuddy. Mr. McGillicuddy looked down at the floor, then lifted 2 misty eyes to me. I was so wrong, Maud. Mr. McGillicuddy shook his head. So wrong. All this time. I tried to stop them. I tried to stop the night enthusiasts. I thought it was so wicked to silence the soul, to make a person love humanity less. But all it does is make things easier. It makes things so much easier, Maud. Mr. McGillicuddy's eyes filled with tears. I don't care about anyone. I don't even care about myself. And since I don't, nothing matters. And since nothing matters, this is the first time I haven't been afraid in 50 years. I'm not afraid anymore, Maud. I'm not afraid of anything. Isn't it wonderful? I took a step back. Mr. McGillicuddy, who came here? How many of you did they get? How many? Mr. McGillicuddy said. How many, Maud? Why, all of us. That was the point, wasn't it? Everyone received a kind of supernatural message in your voice, like a telephone call straight to their brain. You told them to come here at once, so naturally they did. Everyone congregated in the main hall, the way you had told them to. My bed was even wheeled in, at your express instructions. Then, when every single one of them was gathered in that room, no one left behind except for you. A bomb of some kind went off. Oh, no, not a real bomb. Nothing to worry about. No one was harmed. We've never been better. But the bomb changed us, all of us, at once. We became night enthusiasts on the spot. It woke me up. It woke Wrath up. Wrath is now a night enthusiast, you know. He's going to be in a pickle, of course, but I suppose that's how these things go. I hear we're planning on doing the same with the other magic unusuals in groups all over the world. Maud, don't hide from these people anymore. It is their greatest wish to change you into a night enthusiast. It always has been. I am so sorry I told you to stay away from them, to keep your gift, your magic unusual power away from them. You shouldn't. You should give it freely. They will hunt you to the ends of the earth, Maud. It's only a matter of time before Scotland gives some bloody bandages of yours to Raster. I hear he has an ingenious little operation going. Don't struggle, Maud. They'll only find you. Just give in now. Mr. McGillicuddy took a step towards me. Become a night enthusiast. Mr. McGillicuddy, I said. I was blubbering, of course. I was blubbering like a small child. I don't know if anything can be done for you, for all of you, for you and Octavia and Noble and Scotland, and even my own personal Satan, Ariana. But if there's anything that can be done, I am going to do it. Shh, Mr. McGillicuddy said. Stop this nonsense. Just give in tonight, Maud. They're hunting you now. They're hunting you with everything in them. It's only a matter of hours. Still blubbering, I teleported out of the haunted house. I went to the safest place my heart could think of, which was the cemetery where my parents were buried. But this was the late 1800s, and they were still out there, alive, falling in love with each other, perhaps, or at the very least, falling in love with life. The thought gave me courage. I knelt down in front of a tree. Where would I go? The night enthusiasts could get into the Whisklet world now. It was still a safer place to hide, due to its size. But how long would it really be before a Whisklet found me, or a night enthusiast did? It was safer, but it wasn't safe. If only there were somewhere I could go where no one would ever find me, until I wanted to be found. I tapped my finger into the last of Mara's magic jelly, ready to draw one more symbol. Please, let this work, I whispered. My power is to break all spells with a wish. Well, if there are any spells in the fabric of the universe that would prevent me from doing this, I wish they were gone. I wish that, just this once, I would be able to make this work. I wish for this symbol to take me to a place where the night enthusiasts cannot find me, where Raster cannot track my blood. Somewhere I can hide while I figure out what to do. Somewhere where I can keep my humanity safe and intact until I come up with a plan. Fingers trembling, I drew an eye symbol. I touched it, having no mental image this time of where it would take me. It should not have worked. It should have stayed a tiny two-dimensional drawing on the side of a tree. But it didn't. When I touched the eye symbol, I was whisked to somewhere else. I felt 1,000 doors slam on my way out, in a manner of speaking. Of course, I had drawn this eye symbol so that only I could use it. So when I stepped through, it acted like a drawbridge, sealing me off from the world I knew. I landed in what looked like a perfectly ordinary human tower, in a perfectly ordinary Middle Ages. It was a beautiful tower, rough-hewn stone, a canopied bed, a roaring fireplace, tall open windows that looked out into a turbulent moor. The strangest thing about the tower, however, was the glow in the floor and on the walls. Each inch of the place had been smeared in a thin layer of what looked like, well, magic jelly. As if someone had used magic jelly like paint to seal the rest of the world out. Everything glistened, ever so slightly. Suddenly, a shape by the window moved. I nearly jumped out of my skin. A woman was seated there, next to a loom. She stared at me inquisitively, and then I recognized her face. It was Mara, the creator of magic jelly, Wrath's ex-fiancée, the woman who had disappeared. It was Mara. I had found Mara, alive and well, and not a night enthusiast, hiding in a tower in the Middle Ages. "My word," Mara said. "You again?" We hope you've enjoyed Season 4, Episode 12. All the Mice Are Dead, of McGillicuddy and Murder's Pawn Shop. McGillicuddy and Murder's Pawn Shop is written and performed by Minerva Sweeney Wren. All rights reserved. Please subscribe, share it with your friends, and visit minervasweeneywren.com for more. The most impactful way to continue to support McGillicuddy and Murder's Pawn Shop is to simply follow Minerva Sweeney Wren at Meg Macaulay Inc. on Instagram and Twitter. Please consider giving $1 a month if you can at patreon.com/SweeneyWren to unlock the upcoming mystery, The Dark and Decrepit Planet of Spin, as well as my 2 new podcasts, The Good Imaginations podcast and an interactive murder mystery puzzle game, A Very Deadly Evening. All links are in the description of this episode. This concludes Season 4 of McGillicuddy and Murder's Pawn Shop. The final season, Season 5, will air on August 22nd, 2021, the 100-year anniversary of when Maud started writing in her diary.